In the last chapter, we looked at the most common ArcGIS creation operators, exploring how to create an observable from nearly any source. But the creation of observables is only a small piece of the puzzle. What really makes ArcGIS so powerful is the ability to model complex data flows after you have this observable source. To accomplish this, ArcGIS offers a wide variety of what are called pipeable operators that act like real-time queries, allowing you to transform, filter, and combine data as it flows through your observable streams. Like Lodash contains a wide variety of functions to manage collections of data, ArcGIS's pipeable operators fill this same space for streams. But while a sheer number of operators gives you plenty of options for solving nearly any use case with observables, it also comes at a cost. With so many operators, it can be overwhelming. How do you know which operator is correct for your situation? How do you remember the behavior for each? The good news is, you don't need to know every operator to be effective, not even close. In fact, you can start being successful with ArcGIS by understanding just a small handful of core operators, many of which share behavior you may already be familiar with from array methods. Then, as use cases present themselves, you can pick up some of the other operators, including those you may just need for edge cases, as you go. Even now, on a daily basis, I use the same 5 to 10 operators 95% of the time, filling in the gaps when needed. Operators also share common behavior, such as filtering or transforming data. By recognizing these patterns, which we will explore in detail through the remainder of the course, it can help point you in the right direction when you are looking for a very specific operator for a particular use case. On top of this, many operators are simply helpers for or use other operators behind the scenes. This allows you to model your streams with operators you already know and are comfortable with, picking up other helper operators as your experience grows over time. By doing this, the API surface for ArcGIS begins to shrink drastically. Throughout the remainder of the course, we are going to dive into the essential operators you need to start building nearly any application with ArcGIS. Before we dive into specific operators though, let's start by tackling this at a higher level. What does the term pipeable mean, and how do we apply these operators to our streams? To understand this, let's start by taking a look at how you can apply operators in ArcGIS. Non-creation operators generally accept some configuration options, returning a function that accepts an observable source, returning a new observable. So, one way to invoke an operator would be to call it with your configuration, and then invoke it again with a source observable. While this isn't horrible yet, this process can quickly become unreadable as you start applying multiple operators, which is quite common with observable streams. Let's add a second operator to see what I mean. So now we have operator 2, which is invoked with this config, returning a function which takes the observable return from operator 1, which takes the source observable. This is hard enough to say, much less understand at a glance, and it's almost impossible at this point to visualize how data flows through your observable based on the code. To solve this issue, observables feature a pipe method that composes operators for us by invoking each operator with the observable return from the previous call in the chain. Using this, we can take the current ugliness and turn it into this. This is where the term pipeable operator comes from. These operators are simply functions that appear within the pipe method, receiving a source observable, rather than standalone functions like the creation operators we have explored thus far. So this is much better. We can now easily see how our data flows from the producer to the observer. You can picture your stream as an assembly line, and your operators within the pipe method as stations on this line. Subscribing to an observable is like the big red button triggering the producer and starting the execution of your stream. This causes each operator to subscribe to their source, which is just the observable return from the previous operator. Data then flows downward from the producer, with behavior from each operator being applied before reaching the observer. The last thing I wanted to emphasize in this introduction is that applying an operator is a pure operation. As we saw earlier, operators receive the source observable and return a new observable. Through this process, the underlying observable is not impacted. For instance, say we have created an observable of numbers using the of creation operator. We can then apply an operator which transforms these emitted numbers in some way, returning a new observable. We now have two separate observables, an observable of numbers and an observable of transformed numbers that we could then use to compose additional observables if we want it. This behavior lets us compose streams from other streams without fear of impacting the underlying source. So in this example, even though we are creating a numbers plus 10 observable by applying an operator to our numbers observable is not impacted. We will explore this concept in much more detail in upcoming lessons. To recap, pipeable operators are the horsepower behind ArcGIS, allowing us to perform powerful operations in our data streams in a straightforward declarative manner. To use these operators, we can include them in the observable pipe method, which composes them for us. Applying operators is a pure operation, so we can build observables out of other observables without fear of impacting an underlying stream. Throughout the remainder of the course, we will explore the core operators you will need in order to build nearly any application you can imagine using ArcGIS, exploring their behavior in much more detail along the way. Let's get started with an operator whose behavior you're probably already familiar with from using array methods, the map operator.